Have you ever heard of an athlete who beat all the odds and put his country on the global bodybuilding map? The story we're diving into today is all about grit, discipline, and courage. And it's not just about building muscle. It's about determination, sweat, and the will to never quit. This is the journey of a true pioneer who proved that nothing is impossible when you really believe in your dream. So, grab your pre-workout and join us on this inspiring ride. Get ready, because what you're about to hear might just change the way you see bodybuilding, and maybe even life itself. Hamdullah Aykutlu was born in 1965 in the bustling city of Istanbul, Turkey. From a young age, he showed an energy that seemed almost limitless, along with a drive to push beyond boundaries. While most teenagers around him were busy with school or hanging out, Hamdullah wanted something different. He wanted to transform his body and test his real physical potential. That's when he found weight training, a discovery that would completely change the course of his life. At just 16, his path took a major turn when he met Ahmet Inanlu, one of Turkey's most iconic bodybuilders. Training under a legend was a rare privilege for a beginner, and Hamdullah wasn't about to waste it. He absorbed every tip, every technique, every tweak to his workouts. His discipline quickly caught his mentor's eye. Inanlu could see that this kid had something different, a kind of drive that went way beyond average. The most impressive part? Results came fast. Only 5 months into serious training, Hamdullah was already shocking people with how much muscle he'd put on. His rapid progress landed him on stage at the Beaten Turbiyesi Cup, a key competition for young Turkish athletes. Against all odds, the newcomer walked away with an incredible second place. That podium finish was proof of his talent and his ability to evolve at lightning speed. And he wasn't done. That same year, he also claimed the title of Junior Champion of Turkey, solidifying his reputation as one of the top young athletes in the country. Just imagine, less than a year of intense training, and he was already a national champion. It was as if fate had rolled out a clear road ahead of him, paved with effort, sweat, and the promise of future glory. But here's what really set Hamdullah apart. It wasn't just genetics or fast muscle growth. It was his mindset. Even as a teenager, he understood that bodybuilding wasn't only about lifting weights. It was a lifestyle. Discipline, strict nutrition, and mental toughness were just as important as the barbell. That mature perspective at such a young age became his secret weapon throughout his career. Another big factor in his early years was the support system around him. Back then, bodybuilding didn't have much visibility in Turkey, but Hamdullah's dedication inspired people around him. Friends, family, and training partners all saw him as an example of focus and perseverance. That encouragement gave him the confidence to keep pushing forward and to dream even bigger. That's how the story began. A young athlete who unknowingly was about to open the door for his entire country to step into the global bodybuilding scene. After such a promising start, it was only natural for him to chase bigger challenges. His talent and discipline got noticed quickly, and before long, he was competing in top-level events. In 1991, just a few years after starting out, Hamdullah stepped on stage at the IFBB European Amateur Championships in the light heavyweight division. The result? First place. He was crowned the best in Europe in his class. That win was more than a trophy. It proved that a young athlete from Istanbul had what it took to stand toe-to-toe with the best in the continent. The European title opened doors and gave him international visibility, showing the world that he was ready for the global stage. And that was only the beginning of an even more ambitious journey. The following year, in 1992, came the peak of his amateur career. He traveled to Graz, Austria, to compete at the IFBB World Amateur Championships, an event that gathered the top rising stars of bodybuilding worldwide. Every little detail counted. And once again, Hamdullah delivered. He won the World Championship title in the light heavyweight category. A milestone not just for his career, but for Turkish bodybuilding history. What made this victory even more special was who he surpassed. None other than his own coach, Ahmet Inanlu. Just picture that moment. The student beating the master on a world stage. It was a powerful symbol, marking the rise of a new generation of Turkish bodybuilders. That night, Hamdullah wasn't just a promise anymore. He was the real deal. And the win in Graz came with a prize that would change everything, the IFBB Pro card. This card is the golden ticket to the professional circuit, the passport to compete against the world's biggest names on the most prestigious stages. For Hamdullah, it was the ultimate reward for years of relentless dedication. But it also meant stepping into a whole new battlefield. No more young prospects, only seasoned giants who had already carved their place in bodybuilding history. And as if winning a world title wasn't enough, that victory also earned him an invitation to the most prestigious stage of all, the 1993 Mr. Olympia. Just getting that invite alone meant he had joined the absolute elite of bodybuilding. Think about it. How many athletes in the world ever get the chance to stand on the same stage as the greatest legends of the sport? And for a Turkish bodybuilder, this was even bigger. He was about to become the very first athlete from his country to ever step on the Olympia stage. His meteoric rise as an amateur showed exactly how dedication, focus, and discipline can rewrite someone's destiny. In just 2 years, he went from European champion to world champion, climbing the ranks at lightning speed. And now, with his IFBB Pro card in hand, he was ready to take the biggest leap of his life. The year 1993 became a turning point in Turkish bodybuilding history. That was the year Hamdullah made his debut on the sport's ultimate stage, Mr. Olympia. For those unfamiliar, Olympia is the Super Bowl of bodybuilding, the absolute pinnacle where only the best of the best get to compete. And there he was, representing Turkey for the very first time. At that Olympia, he finished in 17th place. On paper, that might look like a modest result, but when you step back and consider the weight of what he accomplished, it's monumental. He wasn't just competing, he was breaking barriers, proving that Turkey, too, could have a presence on the global bodybuilding scene. To this day, he remains the only Turkish athlete to have set foot on that stage, and that alone cements his name in history. And he didn't stop there. That same year, he competed in 3 Grand Prix events. In France, he placed 6th. In Germany, another 6th. And in Spain, he cracked the top 5 with an impressive 5th place finish. These consistent results showed the world he wasn't just some one-time invitee. He was a serious contender, respected by judges and fellow athletes alike. What really made him stand out was his physique. At a time when the mass monster era, led by Dorian Yates, was taking over with jaw-dropping size, Hamdullah brought something different. His conditioning was razor-sharp. Thin, dry skin, deep cuts, insane definition. It almost looked like he had zero body fat. His aesthetic was unique and refreshing, making him stand out even among the giants. Many fans and commentators pointed out that while he lacked the sheer volume of the mass monsters, his look carried the essence of classic bodybuilding: clean lines, sharp details, and aesthetic proportions. In a way, he brought a reminder to Olympia of the sport's beauty and artistry, not just the relentless chase for size. Sharing the stage with legends like Dorian Yates, Kevin Levrone, and Nasser El Sambadi was already a dream come true. Imagine what it felt like, standing side by side with the very athletes you once idolized, only now being judged alongside them as an equal. Hamdullah didn't just dream about it, he lived it. And in doing so, he earned the respect of the international bodybuilding community, while inspiring a whole generation of athletes back home in Turkey. That debut at Olympia wasn't just a personal milestone. It became a beacon of inspiration, proving that what seems impossible can, in fact, be achieved. Who could have imagined that a teenager from Istanbul, who started training at 16, would end up just a few years later on the most prestigious stage in the sport? After his historic Olympia debut, Hamdullah kept pushing forward on the pro circuit, taking on the biggest names in the world. Between 1994 and 1996, he competed in multiple Grand Prix and Pro Cup shows, going head-to-head with legends like Dorian Yates, Kevin Levrone, Nasser El Sambadi, and Paul Dillett. Just sharing the lineup with these giants was proof enough that he belonged in bodybuilding's elite. Those battles were intense, demanding more than just muscle mass. Every contest was a test of conditioning, symmetry, and mental toughness. And Hamdullah held his own, earning several top 10 finishes, a remarkable achievement in an era dominated by athletes with almost superhuman proportions. Picture this, standing on stage next to Dorian Yates, the man who redefined the sport with unmatched mass, or facing Kevin Levrone, widely considered one of the most complete physiques of all time. For most people, just watching these legends up close would have been a dream. But Hamdullah was right there, competing against them, proving his resilience and courage every single time he stepped on stage. Even though he never managed to take down the mass monsters of the era, Hamdullah achieved something just as valuable: respect. Bodybuilding fans remember him as the guy who never flinched in front of the sport's biggest stars, always stepping on stage with confidence and giving his very best. That attitude inspired countless young athletes to believe that it was possible to compete with the best, even if you came from a country far outside the sport's main hubs. In 1997, Hamdullah competed in 2 more pro shows, keeping his consistency and dedication alive. But by then, he had already started reflecting on the direction of his career. The bodybuilding scene was being completely taken over by the mass monster era, and maybe it was time for him to chase challenges that would value his aesthetics and physique style even more. After years of battling the world's top pros, he made a decision that surprised many fans. He returned to the amateur circuit. For some, that might have looked like a step backward, but in reality, it was a smart, strategic move. Hamdullah realized there was still plenty of room for him to shine, rack up titles, and prove his journey was far from over. 1998 turned out to be one of the most important years of his career. Competing on home soil in Izmir, Turkey, Hamdullah reached new heights. He not only won the light heavyweight division, but also took the overall champion title, beating athletes from every category. That victory was a crowning moment, showing that he still had so much left to give to the sport. The following year, in 1999, he kept the momentum going and captured another major title, IFBB European Amateur Champion. This reinforced his spot as one of the continent's best and cemented his status as a true reference in the sport. For a Turkish athlete, these victories carried even more weight. They inspired a whole new generation to believe that they too could reach the top. The peak of this phase came in 2000, when Hamdullah claimed the IFBB World Amateur Championship in the heavyweight division. This win symbolized not only his physical evolution, but also his maturity as an athlete. He was no longer the teenage prodigy just dreaming of greatness. He was now a seasoned veteran, with multiple international titles on his resume. But those victories weren't just about trophies. They were proof of his unshakable passion for bodybuilding. No matter the challenges or the changes in the sports landscape, Hamdullah's dedication never wavered. Each title represented years of hard work, discipline, and a relentless will to keep moving forward. In 2002, after collecting countless titles and leaving his mark on the amateur scene, he stepped on stage one last time before taking a long break. That pause became a period of rest and reflection, but also the beginning of new chapters in his life. By then, he had already written a golden page in bodybuilding history, but deep down, he knew his story wasn't finished yet. After years away from competition, most people assumed Hamdullah's career was over. But in 2010, he shocked the bodybuilding world with a triumphant comeback. At 45 years old, he returned to the stage, and not just to participate, but to dominate. That year, he won the IFBB World Masters Championship in the heavyweight division and also took the overall title, outclassing athletes across all divisions. It was living proof that his competitive fire was still burning as strong as ever. That comeback wasn't just about results, it was about resilience. Think about it, stepping back on stage after years away and showing the world you could still reach peak excellence. Hamdullah proved that bodybuilding isn't only about youth or genetics. It's about continuous discipline, passion, and an unbreakable mindset. In 2011, he added yet another prestigious trophy to his collection, the Amateur Olympia heavyweight title. This competition was considered a showcase of the world's best, and winning it confirmed that Hamdullah was still operating at the very highest level, even while competing in the Masters category. By then, his name was firmly carved into the sport's history. In 2012, he repeated his feat from 2 years earlier, once again winning the World Masters Championship in both heavyweight and overall. This wasn't just another trophy. It was proof of his consistency, the same consistency that had defined his entire career. Even in his later years, he remained competitive and continued inspiring everyone who followed his journey. Finally, in 2013, Hamdullah made his last official appearance on stage. Competing at the World Masters, he finished in 8th place, a respectable result that closed his competitive career with honor. After that, he chose to retire for good. But as with every great story, his farewell wasn't the end. It marked the beginning of a legacy, one that would go on to inspire future generations for years to come. Throughout his career, Hamdullah built an impressive resume that secured his place among the greats of world bodybuilding. His titles speak for themselves. European Champion in 1991 and 1999, IFBB World Amateur Champion in 1992, 1998, and 2000, IFBB World Masters Champion in 2010 and 2012, and Amateur Olympia Champion in 2011. Very few athletes in the world have managed to stay at such a high level for so many years, competing across different eras and divisions. And beyond his titles, his physical stats were just as striking. Standing 5 feet 10 inches, 1.77 meters, and competing around 200 pounds, 90 kilograms, Hamdullah had standout measurements: a 51-inch chest, 130 centimeters, a 27-inch waist, 67 to 70 centimeters, 25-inch thighs, 65 centimeters, and 20-inch arms, 50 centimeters. These proportions made him one of the most balanced physiques of his time, with extreme, and I mean extreme, definition and aesthetics that always caught the judges and the crowd's attention. Hamdullah wasn't just another competitor. To this day, he's considered the most successful Turkish bodybuilder of all time. No other athlete from his country has reached such international recognition, stepped on the Olympia stage, and collected so many major victories. For Turkey, he became a symbol of pioneering spirit, someone who proved that the impossible could, in fact, be achieved. Bodybuilding experts often highlight an interesting point about his career. While Hamdullah never broke into the world's top 5, many believe that if he had competed in a different era, he would have easily ranked among the sport's all-time greats. The reason is simple. He competed during the peak of the mass monster era, when athletes like Dorian Yates pushed size standards to nearly unattainable levels. Had he competed a decade earlier, during bodybuilding's classic era, his aesthetic physique, clean lines, deep cuts, and perfect symmetry would likely have been even more valued. In that context, experts argue that Hamdullah could have easily been one of the very best in the world. It's a reminder that sometimes an athlete's recognition depends as much on timing as on talent. Even so, his career should never be seen as incomplete. On the contrary, Hamdullah's journey is a legacy of consistency, discipline, and courage. He faced the sport's biggest names without fear, won meaningful titles at every stage of his life, and proved that success can come even from countries with no bodybuilding tradition. Even after retirement, Hamdullah remains a respected figure in the international bodybuilding scene. He's remembered not only for the titles he won, but also for his razor-sharp conditioning and aesthetic physique that inspired an entire generation of fans. His presence on stage always had an impact, something very few athletes can truly achieve. In Turkey and across Europe, his influence went even deeper. He inspired countless young athletes to believe they could go far, no matter where they came from. Many of today's competitors cite his name as a reference and inspiration, a true pioneer who opened doors and showed the way. More than his physique, his story is remembered for discipline and perseverance. From the time he was 16 until his master's peak, Hamdullah proved that daily dedication is the real secret behind greatness. He never let setbacks break him. Instead, he reinvented himself, proving that true victory lies in persistence. And here's a fun bit of bodybuilding lore. There's a long circulating rumor that Arnold Schwarzenegger once asked Hamdullah what his secret was for those famously chiseled glutes, cut as if sculpted with a scalpel. It's never been confirmed, but the story itself shows how even the sport's biggest legends noticed his unique talent, another sign of his impact on the world stage. The recognition Hamdullah earned goes far beyond trophies. He became a symbol of bravery and pioneering spirit, a man who wasn't afraid to step onto the biggest stages and go toe-to-toe with the best in the world. His career reminds us that opening doors for others can be just as valuable as winning medals, and that inspiring generations is a legacy that never fades. So, what did you think about the incredible journey of Hamdullah Aykutlu, Turkey's greatest bodybuilder? If this story inspired you, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel keep bringing epic stories like this one. And don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to support us even more, consider becoming a channel member to get exclusive content. Now I want to hear from you. Had you ever heard of Hamdullah Aykutlu before? What impressed you the most about his career, his discipline, his titles, or his courage to step on the Mr. Olympia stage? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because your participation makes our community even stronger. And it doesn't stop here. On the end screen, you'll see another video with one more inspiring story from the world of bodybuilding. Click over and keep going with us on this journey full of discipline, perseverance, and inspiration. See you in the next video.